Welcome everyone to a live episode of Activista Rise Up. I am your host, Dr. Patricia Campos-Medina. You can listen to this episode on all my social media, Spotify, Google, or Apple Podcasts. As an advocate for immigrant justice, for workers' rights, and for the struggles of Latinos in the United States, I have always believed that we must embrace the fight for Black Lives Matter because our struggle for justice, whether it be in the workplace or in our communities, is built upon the same foundation of civil rights. However, to learn to be in solidarity with our African American brothers and sisters in their struggle for Black lives, we must also learn to understand our own implicit bias against or what we know in our community as colorism, or this ingrained perception that the closest you are to white skin, the better you are. We do have a lot of anti-Black colorism bias in our community that sometimes limits the level of discussions that we can have on what police violence means for our Black and brown youth, and how we can build solidarity across movements so that together we can figure out how to end the oppression in our urban cities, we can end the oppression in our immigrant communities, and we can build power for people of color in this country. To help me have this conversation this week, I have a dear friend, colleague, and leader of the Black Lives Matter movement in New Jersey, Kason Little. He is a fearless advocate, both for Black Lives Matter movement, but also for immigrant justice. And it's a pleasure for me to have him here today, joining me to have this important but difficult conversation that we must have. Kason, welcome to Activista Rise Up.
Thank you, Patricia, for having me, my friend.
Yeah. This week, like you or many people in this country, I was actually worried because I felt like things were going to go the other way. And when they didn't, I was relieved. And there was a sense of relief. So I want to ask you, since you're being at the core of this struggle, and a struggle that has been led by youth like you, how did you feel about the result of the Chauvin trial this week? And what does it mean for the movement to continue? But first of all, please tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, who you are, and how you come to do this work.
Thank you so much. So hello, everybody out there for watching. And again, thank you, Patricia, for inviting me. My name is Kason Little. I'm from Elizabeth, New Jersey, born and raised, been involved in my community since as early as a teenager, involved in our local government, county government, as well as throughout our state, ensuring that, the people have a voice and ensuring that we're properly represented, right? I'm also a third generation cousin of the late great Malcolm X, which is the first cousin of my grandfather, Dante Wright. Sorry about that, guys. And so it's a long family history and tradition in my family of civil rights and of liberation and fight for justice and truth and equality, especially for Black lives. He stated so profoundly back in the day that chickens is coming home to roost any day, right? And so what we've seen on January 6th, the insurrection in the Capitol with the domestic terrorists, that is exactly what he meant. It's that chickens like that came home to roost and showed us our true colors on how America was really founded. It was founded on genocide. It was founded on exploitation. It was founded on racism. It was founded on Islamophobia, and so many other things, right? But we have that moral obligation to tear that back cover of that book, right? That our generation and our future no longer believes in, especially most importantly, that our ancestors have no longer believed in, right? But pertaining to the Derek Chauvin trial, I'm going to be really honest. I did not watch the trial not once. It's really hard for Black people to continue to relive these tragedies and fatalities, especially since we know the sad reality that it is hard for us to obtain justice under this system, right? Black and brown people. And it has never worked in our favor. It was designed to keep our people in bondage, to keep our people oppressed, right? And it was never meant to benefit us in any type of way. But what we've seen during the trial, and although I did not watch it, I have been very in tune. I know that they will come out and say, paint and beat George Floyd down in history because of the fact that they don't want this whiteified design system to be exposed, right? And what we're seeing and what we saw with former police officer Derek Chauvin, that is the culture of police departments in our country. We have to be really honest, raw, and real about that. It's because police are trained to kill people with impunity. And as long as that exists, that will continue to happen if we do not abolish wicked and unjust systems that was created to seek to destroy us as people. And for that very reason, if we do not do that, our Black and brown babies will never feel safe in a world that does not value their existence. And for that very reason, it is incumbent on us to speak up. It is incumbent on us to lead. It is incumbent on us to guide and to strengthen one another and to remind each other of our power, right? We know power ultimately means it's the ability to act. And so the question is, brothers and sisters, are you guys really ready to act? We need people to really be fearless, unapologetic leaders and to take what our people have built, right? And what our people have sacrificed their lives for. And we know that this is only the beginning, but unfortunately, justice was not served. That was accountability. And we need to really understand the difference. I have been seeing so much on social media this entire week since the since the Derek Chauvin trial was, oh my God, we have justice. I'm like, no. Justice is George Floyd being alive. Justice is his daughter, baby Gianna, having her father by her side and raising her. Justice is not one more Black and brown soul lost due to police violence. That is what justice is. But unfortunately, justice has not been served because just right after, 10 miles away from where the Derek Chauvin trial took place, Dante Wright was gunned down and murdered by police because of a traffic violation. And right after that, 16-year-old Micaiah Bryant in Columbus, Ohio, was gunned down by police. And just after that, Andrew Brown of Elizabeth City, North Carolina, a father of 10, 40-year-old innocent unarmed Black man, was gunned down by police in North Carolina. And it is happening at this very second. It is happening right now. And it will continue to happen as long as we abolish qualified immunity, as long as we abolish policing, unfortunately, because there's the thing. I know many people say, oh, we need cops. We need cops. Let me say this. We are against police terror. We are against racial profile system. And unfortunately, we don't abolish this type of policing. It will continue to happen, right? But it is a strong need for dismantleization and restructuralization all over that benefits Black and brown people. It's like the saying, when we're referencing the White House, right? And I have to be honest. Anyone who knows me knows that I be very, very honest and I keep it real nice and raw. The White House is named the White House for a reason, okay? Because it was founded on white supremacy. And that is how America was created. And we have to have these raw, honest conversations because we need to prepare the next generation of leaders to let them know what this country was really created to be. And to also remind them that a new world is possible. But it starts with them. And they have to look in the mirror and remind themselves that they can chase after the impossible and do the unthinkable and just fulfill the dream of all those who sacrificed their lives just to get us to where we are today. So it's like that saying, in order to get to tomorrow, we must fight today, right? So it's like, what are we doing right now?
And we also must understand the history so that we don't, it sounds wacky, but it's like, don't repeat it. Absolutely. One of the things that I appreciate about your analysis is this whole idea that, America was built on a history of genocide, on a history of racial capitalism, Cedric Robinson, who is one of the most premier intellectuals in political science in the United States, talks about that, about how the system of policing and the system of oppression was designed to create those with access to wealth and the ones who make the wealth. And it happens that the wealth of this country came from the exploitation of our natives. And then when they were sickened by disease, by the importation of African slaves to continue the creation of the wealth of white European America. And I think that is not hitting the descendants of European whites. It's not blaming them for where we are. But what we are always saying that what we want is accountability for the burden that they place on the generations of our families to carry on the cost of being exploited for so long. And part of the cost is this sense of brutality on policing in our communities, or the incarceration of our Black and brown bodies, and the incarceration of immigrants. You and I have spent years protesting incarceration of undocumented immigrants here in our jails. For what? For wanting to work, which is just the greatest injustice that we're still living on. But I open up this discussion with the issue of colorism and the bias that I am a Latina and an immigrant, but I am at the core a social justice advocate. And I always try to make these connections between movements, because at the end of the day, we have to bring people together to understand our own common struggles, right? So that we can build power together. So I want to just elevate that you also do fight for immigrant justice, and you fight for opportunities for the undocumented, and you also at the core, I always see you at the core fighting about justice. So how we can bring those conversations together, and I think that there's more opportunity with young people to have those conversations. So
and you know what, it is so important to touch on topics like that, because my struggle is your struggle, right? Your struggle is my struggle, right? And if we educate our people on the importance of, why it's so important to have each other's backs, especially during a time such as this, and to be a united front and to inform and educate our community, that we can't get but very far as long as we have each other's support, as long as we inform one another the importance of the way that things were created to literally destroy us as human beings and to belittle us, right? So to touch on that topic, I've always said, even when we're, out protesting and one of our chants is, silence is violence, right? Join us and this is your fight too. Those words must touch us in a profound way, because it's literally what we're going day to day dealing with. I'm trying to remember a conversation I recently had that stuck in my head, because I was asked the same question from a few young people here in Elizabeth, and they were saying, well, I have a lot of white friends in my school, and they unfortunately are raised with white privilege that protects them from getting harshly punished or racially profiled, compared to me as a brown person, a Black person. They don't know my struggles, but they claim that I don't know their struggles. And I said, well, let me tell you this. Your struggles is literally zero comparison compared to theirs. We have to be raw and honest, because of the fact that, yes, white privilege does prevent and protects a lot of fatalities from happening to our white brothers and sisters, compared to what we are going through as Black and brown people. So pertaining to colorism, they need to understand that, and what I mean by they is, white allies, right, is to let them know that, number one, in order for you to really be allies, is you have to really know that this is your fight too. If your silence is violence, and if you don't do anything, you are guilty of complicity, just as the people who commit the murders, just as the people who aid to the terrorization of our people. And it's like, listen, we want to educate our community. We want to empower them. But we know the sad reality that we cannot educate those who don't want to be educated. We have to literally lift our minds or open our minds, and let people know that it is not our job to continue to get exhausted to educate you on why this is such a problem, right? You should automatically understand that from the very beginning. And if you don't understand, that's not our problem, right? Because, we're just literally trying to make it to the next day. We're literally trying to thrive, to live in peace. And to, again, say that, a new world is possible, but it starts with us.
One thing that always surprises me in this debate is this whole, opposition to the idea that we need to change the way of policing in this country. Policing has become a way to keep people down, to oppress them. So when
and unfortunately, Patricia, sorry to cut you off. When we have that conversation too, we also have to remember that it was created to be like that. It was created to not be at the best interest of Black and brown people. It was created to harshly punish and terrorize and tokenize and brutalize our skin because they see the power we have. They see our resiliency in our race. And, for that very reason, they know that we will continue to be in mourning because, just right now, like I said it earlier, Black people and brown people are being gunned down at this very second, right? Because of the color of our skin. And, that has to be abolished. Reform cannot help that. Reform cannot fix that because we've tried the reform approach so many times and it had literally continued to expose this country's wrongdoing. It continues to expose America having their knees on our necks. George Floyd situation, or you can't sleep peacefully because you have to have no-knock warrants. You shouldn't have to have no-knock warrants for cops to go into a wrong house like Breonna Taylor's case and kill her in her sleep, or other cases that is happening and developing at this very second. I mean, enough is enough, but right, we put it in writing, we've marched, we've made phone calls, we boycotted, we picketed, we've did sit-ins in offices, and they still don't hear us because they don't want to hear us, and if they wanted to hear us, they would have had these uncomfortable, unbearable conversations a long time ago. But the fact is, they know what they're doing. They know why it was created, and they want to keep it just as is.
One good example, about how police has had too much to do, too much power, or too much intervention in our communities is the example that we just had this week in Perth Amboy, right here in our own state. In which kids are riding their bike, being teenagers, having fun. Yeah, perhaps they're causing a little bit of traffic. And the response of the police is to arrest them, take their bikes, and take a kid on detention. Like, that is a pure example of the power the police has to criminalize a young kid's life for doing what they should just perhaps be reprimanded for causing traffic and then given another opportunity. But I can only imagine that experience already for that kid that had that horrible experience of being brutalized like that by the police right here in New Jersey. So to me, it was like, when that happened, for people not to violently say that's unacceptable and that's over policing, is mind-boggling to me, that they couldn't see that as an example of how much power police have and how we need to change that. And to me, when there is this negativity around the Black Lives Matter movement, a demand for defunding the police, but I think that there is a lot of demands that are encapsulated in that demand. So can you perhaps go a little bit on to clarify what it is and what is not? Because
absolutely. And before I answer that,
police or we hate police. Is that we want police to do better.
Right. And I will honestly answer that. Before I answer that, I want to touch a little bit on the Perth Amboy situation. I've been in contact with one of those family members of the kid that was arrested, and we need justice, right? Because that should not have happened. The fact that, young Black boys cannot ride their bikes in their own neighborhoods where their parents pay taxes and where their parents vote for fiscal accountability and vote for fair representation. I mean, that continues to plague our communities time and time again. And from my understanding, I know that there is a new mayor, and that mayor literally does not see a problem with this. But the fact that he does not see a problem with how that police department was acting, we have a bigger problem on our hands, because if they fail to address it, they fail to act, if they fail to remedy a solution moving forward, it will continue to happen, because you're giving those police officers power and authority and saying, you go out there and continue to brutalize those Black kids. You let them know who's boss. But if you don't literally nip that in the bud, that will continue to happen, and those kids won't feel safe. I know for a fact, when I spoke to a relative of his, he's traumatized, right? He doesn't feel safe, and I'm not saying that he will never, ride a bike again. I'm not saying that, because of that situation, he will fear police. I'm sure he does fear police now, because he cannot be himself. He cannot enjoy, bike time with his friends in his own community. And that's a problem, right? But we have to remember how many times that happens in every community, whether it's populated or fear percentage with Latinos or Blacks, and small percentage of whites. That same police department, that same terror, it is in every community, and it has to be addressed. And we have something planned pertaining to Per Dan Boy next week, because that boy needs justice. So, answering your question of, what was your other question before I answer that? I'm sorry.
No, just to clarify what defund the police is and
Yes.
it's not, because
So
there's a lot of misconceptions. Yes.
What defunding the police really means, and I know when we say defund the police, oh my God, no, we need our police. Oh my God, our police keeps us safe. Oh, I'm sorry, they never kept my people safe. What year was that? I might have missed that. Please help me remind my memory. But according to my history and history of our people, they have never worked in our favor. What we mean by defunding the police is investing the funds and putting it into our community. For example, I am located right here in the city of Elizabeth. The city of Elizabeth have a police budget of over $46 million, when our recreational budget and our youth services budget is below $3 million. That is a problem. Our kids are not being invested in. They are not being poured endless opportunities to get them and prepare them for life, to foster the seeds of self-esteem, to remind them that they are important. But you know how we can invest in our kids is by giving them the funding and resources into the programs to keep them off of the street.
I think we're having some sound. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry about that.
Right.
I have met countless of youth here in Elizabeth poured out their concerns and said to me, Kason, I've lost my parents at an early age, and I look to the city to care about me. I look to the city to protect me, to guide me, right? But unfortunately, we know that these politicians have their own agenda. These politicians are not have not gone through the same issues and struggles of what these kids are going through right now at this very second, and that's a problem. All right, but we have to continue to remind them that, well, first and foremost, it's not really our job to continue to educate people. They don't want to have an open mind, but defunding the police means that it was created to mean investing and pouring the funds into our community, and lifting our community up, right? Whether it's making sure that not one person have to worry about putting food on the table, mutual aid services, clothing services, invest in our homeless populations, because yes, me as a proud Bernie Sanders supporter, no one should be homeless in the richest country in the world. And this is the richest country in the world. But we've seen those in power pour our funds, our taxpaying dollars, and continue to fund those crooks on Wall Street to continue to put it in their own pockets and to benefit themselves and hook their friends up with jobs and create jobs for their family members, like pay to play. I scratch your back, you scratch mine. But we are not servicing our community. And that's one of the reasons why we say defunding of the police, is because we want to reallocate those funds and we want to put it where it is deemed necessary, where it is deemed needed. And it is needed in so many things.
Yeah. So we had a discussion last week in anti-Asian hate, and one of my guests, Alvina, talked about how we expect the police to do too much at the end of the problem, rather than invest in the prevention of the problem, which will be invested in the youth, in public programs, in entertainment, in education, and not depend on the police to do that, just the enforcement. And also, not like mental health. We even have like the police coming to your house if there is a problem with somebody in your family with mental health issues. So like, that's not their job. So we're putting too much resources on the police rather in preventing issues in our community before they become the problem. Right. Another thing that we discussed at that time, and I think as a labor leader stuck to me, was how, our government and our political system has increased our defense budget, our police budget. Like they take so much of our public dollars, and at the same time, the jobs, like if you think of the power that the police union has, in politics versus the power that our working class and poor communities have, so we use public dollars to securitize our communities, to invest in defense, to create good jobs for the police, which I don't begrudge them for that. But at the same time, our low-wage workers, poor communities have no jobs, and we cannot afford to pay them a minimum wage. We cannot afford to give them health care. Right. And that is the wrong conceptualization of this problem. So, so it's not just defund the police and get rid of police. It's also think differently about how we're using the resources of the government to invest in communities rather than to invest in a special interest sector, which at this point I believe, the police to be an interest group, and the militarization, the military is an interest as well. So I wanted to engage in that because there's a lot of misconception, especially in the Latino and immigrant community, although the immigrant community is also attacked by the police in so many ways, but there's a misunderstanding of what that means. So in terms of like, how do we make the connection between policing, oppression, undocumented migration, and like our communities are both in big numbers going to jail for just living. That's basically what is happening. So making that connection, I think, is critical for a Latino and African American community. So how are you working with groups or with youth to make that connection, and how can people engage in that work?
That's a good question, and thank you so much. I was having a conversation with a few people about that last night before a protest, and I've met a lot of directly impacted undocumented brothers and sisters who family members, who lost family members inside of ICE custody. Let us not forget that these ICE facilities and the torture of these concentration camps are being voted on by our democratic elected officials as well. I mean, I have to say that because I have a congressman right here in my district, Albio Series, who voted to give $6.2 billion to continue to fund the ICE concentration camps and to continue to keep them open. And they hide behind these democratic titles. Really, people need to understand that your political affiliation really means nothing. Although, I'm a Democrat myself, but I don't consider myself an average Dem. I consider myself a progressive Dem. Yeah. Because we need to bring a transformational change into politics and to relevate that with the everyday struggles of living as Black and brown people. And the fact that our struggles are literally not too much different, because what we're dealing with policing and what you guys are dealing, and what our immigrant undocumented brothers and sisters are dealing with ICE, it is literally under the same system. It literally jointly combines with one another to brutalize and to belittle us, right? And to not make us feel whole as human beings. So when we, to touch on that situation, it literally is hard to, because it's like we get beat up with the questions of saying, especially by our young people, when they just want it to end, when they don't want to live in fear. They're like, when will it end? And we really don't know when it ends, because until we exercise our powers, until we exercise and continue to get radical, and to continue to disrupt things to get their attention, right? To make sure that our pain and our struggles is the direct priority for our government, and to let them know that we're not going through this but yet another day. That is, I don't really have too much to say to that, other than saying it all needs to be abolished. There's really not too much to go into that type of conversation, other than abolition now, abolish it, because we cannot beat around the bush by saying what that may look like, what we might need in order to get them liberated. In order to liberate them, abolish it. Abolish the entire thing. Abolition, 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 abolition. Not reform. We don't need reform with this type of thing. The system was created to not work for the reform approach. It was created to only be continued to be funded or to be abolished, and it needs to be abolished. I mean, that's all that I have to answer that, Patricia. Fair honesty.
I've always appreciated your passion and your honesty on these issues, because I think we need that type of visionary way to move forward. Because if we're only thinking about a little reform here, a little accountability there, we're not going to change how we invest in our communities so that we can prevent
and
this.
Sorry to cut you off. And let us not forget that times is no different right now from when Trump was in office, right? We know that these concentration camps are still functioning.
Yeah.
But under Biden administration, a new migrant youth facility was opened, right? Thousands of parents cannot be located. Thousands of babies are developing traumatic experiences and PTSD and all types of medical neglect, and are slowly dying under these facilities, right? Again, you know, the clocks cannot be rewind. We have no time to waste. So we have to really be in the streets and be direct with our pain and confrontational with our government officials, because they run on these campaign promises and refuse to keep their promises. They refuse to center those directly impacted into policy platforms and to laws. So Biden is also the problem, and we cannot continue to say that, help is here, right? No, help is not here. Help is really not coming until we get these people out, and to put people who believe in freedom and liberation and abolition, because without all of those three things, we will not reach victory. We will not reach a world that is full of peace, a world that is full of justice, of love, of mercy. And for that very reason, our souls will not rest.
Yeah. One of the things that, I believe that the kind of passion that you have and that you show for this issue is inspirational and inspires other people to demand that deep systemic change. We also need to figure out how to demand more from our white allies in terms for them to really understand what does it take to be a real ally on issues of racial justice and on issues of immigrant justice.
Right.
Because we cannot just act from a place of today. We cannot just fix immigration by saying we're going to do this and then we're going to close the border. That's not a
Right.
solution. There is a history of why those children continue to come, because we have spent 20 years without the ability from people from Mexico and Central America to migrate legally. You know, and you know, so they will continue to come as long as there are 11.5 million family members in this country are undocumented and cannot go visit them. Can you imagine? I am also a researcher, and I was interviewing these older men who came to the United States in 1979 as a refugee from El Salvador. And he applied for political asylum during the wars in the 80s, was denied, applied for TPS, he ran out of time. He has not seen his kids or his grandkids, because he cannot leave the country. So since 1979, he has been separated from his kids and from his grandkids. And that is a reality for generations of migrants, and that we're still trying to fix. And I think that when we ask our white allies to be allies with us, it's like, be curious about why our people feel the way they feel. And and I engage in those that ask from them. But how do we talk to? And I do know a lot of white allies that genuinely want to do the right thing, but I always try to push them to understand what the right thing is in the context of what our people are living. So how do we bring back for them to understand that the struggle for racial justice, what the Black Lives Matter movement is asking us to do, is to understand the experience of Black people in this country and to address it from their perspective, rather than to tell you what we should do, for you to let us know what is it that we need to be doing. So how do we have those conversations and push our white allies to do more, to demand more from our political system?
I would say they need to be reminded that their white ancestors are the cause of many of what we're going through today. Let's just be real about it. And if they refuse to act, if they refuse to remember that, if they refuse to believe that, then they are part of the problem with what their people created. But let us be abundantly clear that, like I said earlier, we can educate them all we want. We can remind them on why this movement will be better and larger, not easier, but better and larger and more uniteful with their presence. But if they don't want to be educated, if they want to have a closed mind, if they want to use, if they want to have their white privilege continue to get in the way, it is not our job to continue to educate them and to continue to pour out that draining energy of the time of what we're spending on educating our white allies who don't live in our shoes, who don't want to understand our struggles. That's worrisome right there, and it will speak volumes, and it will continue down in history. But I will say that we've seen a lot of white people, be present in the movement and present in protestings and continue to be of a shield of violence from police, and that's helpful, right? And we appreciate that, and we let that be made known. But we also let be made known is that you follow the direction of those that are directly impacted, and you follow the direction of those that have to live day to day with these type of issues, because you do not. So let's not have this power get to white people's head, because we know that it can get to their head a lot, and they can use that and try to say, let me lead you. No, we are done with the times of letting white people lead us. White people have led us for over 400 years, and we will not continue to let that happen, because if we do, we're not free. We're not being our true selves. We will continue to show our youth and our kids that we have to follow the direction of white people. And for that very reason, we know that white people are literally having to say so on so many things right now over our lives that they don't understand. They're not living how we're living, but they can say, oh yes, let's have these people continue to go through that. They're making the shots of how we need to live right now, and that is not right. And we need to literally end that. That needs to be abolished too. Abolish everything and restructure it from the ground up.
Yeah. One of the questions that we have on our Facebook comments is folks wanting to know what organizations they can support in New Jersey around issues of Black Lives Matter and anti-police brutality. Can you connect some of our followers to some groups that you work with?
Absolutely. I would say that the most important thing you could do, and you can contribute and to donate to. I have to literally shout out my comrades and my fellow Black brothers and sisters at BLM Patterson, that is ran by Zeli Imani, one of the organizers. Please consider donating to them. I mean, they have poured and gave so much of themselves day in and day out by making sure that we are not only liberating our people, but we're providing for our people with proper nutrients and daily supplements, and to give them food, access to water, access to things that can make sure that their families are not being left without. They literally are on the ground every single day. And what we also, it goes back to my last conversation of what defunding means, is investing and making sure that we're pouring funds in our community. This is exactly what they do. They raise these funds. It's raised by everyday people like us. It's raised by small dollar donations and contributions, and to give to people. And I have to really shout him out because he do so much great work. He really look out for our people. And it's like the saying, no one will have us but us. We got us, right? And it's a true testament, reflection of our strength. It's a testament, reflection of our love for our people. And so I would say, if there's one organization within our BLM realm here in New Jersey, please donate to BLM Patterson, because they are not only securing donations for Patterson, but they are literally doing work for other communities throughout our state. Good. So please consider donating to them.
We'll add a link at the end of the show so people can find them. Another question that we have from one of the followers is, why do you recommend to parents who have young brown Black kids, how they can talk to them about this issue, so when they become teenagers, or they're ready to address the situation if they're exposed to it, or just to be more empathetic about it?
I would say to really have these raw and honest conversations with our young people at a very young age. We have to really equip them for the sad reality of life. We have to really remind them that what we've been waiting for, and what we have to let them know that first and foremost, while we're informing them of all the sad things that happen in our world, we have to let them know and encourage them that it will get better because of them. It will get better because of their strength and what this world has yet to see of what they will do to make it better. So let us not only remind our young people that, unfortunately, they might have to go through discrimination and go through police violence, but to let them know that because of them, because of their strength, because of their heart, because of how they were raised, and because of this crucial moment in time, we have been waiting for them. And every time when I walk into a room full of people, I let them know that hope, real change will happen when they are there to fix it. And in order for them to fix it, we have to be really raw and honest on what's really happening. Because if we prepare our kids to let them know and to say to them, life is not hard, life is only but what we make it, we will continue to fail them. We will continue to fail them if we give them misinformation of life. We will continue to fail them if we do not be raw and honest about the issues and the struggles of what they will go through. Once when they walk out the door, then we will set them up to be failed.
Yeah. And I hear the passion in your voice, and it just occurred to me, When did your mother have that first conversation with you about unfairness and discrimination? Do you remember?
At 15 years old, I was, I just graduated from, no. I graduated from 8th grade at 13, turning 14. I was near sophomore in high school, freshman going on sophomore. No, sophomore, correct. And I remember hearing about the killings of, you know, black men and black women. And I remember seeing that weigh down a lot on my family, because we just never know when we can be next. We never know when that can happen to us. And it is happening to us, whether if I knew George Floyd personally, or if I didn't know Dante Wright personally, that is still my brother. That is still our family members. We are together. You know, no one has our back better than we have each other's backs. So I remember having those hard conversations at 15 years old, and I would ask, her a lot of questions about, but how can I make it better? How can I fix it? That was always my question to my mother, is
And what would she said to you?
Yes, how can I fix
Yeah.
this to make sure that it does not happen to someone else? And she reminded me that it is literally about your drive and your ambition. But she said, in order to have that happen, you have to know who you are. You have to keep your ethics. You have to keep your morals. You have to keep your values. Because in life, when people recognize your power, people will try to make you sell your soul. People will try to buy you out. People will try. Here's the thing. Many people around here recognize my power at an early age.
Yeah.
And it is no secret that they've tried so much to pull me down and to, get me to join this clique, or to get me to go over here, so that way I don't make a change for my people. So that way I don't liberate others. Because the truth is, they don't want us to be liberated. They don't want us to be free. So I recognized that at an early age when that conversation happened, because I believe that was in the beginning of when Trayvon Martin was killed in Florida.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
wow, he's near me. This could have been me,
Yeah.
But
It's so amazing that, time since Trayvon Martin, there have been so many more other deaths that we don't talk about Trayvon Martins anymore. That's what at the beginning I put no other names, because there's so many names of young men who had
right.
basically take their lives taken away with no justice to those families. So thank you for bringing back that name, because I remember, it's a whole life
It cannot
gone.
be forgotten.
It cannot be forgotten. Yeah. Should people continue to protest this right now, despite the guilty verdict of Chauvin? That's the question
Yes.
on the screen.
Yes. Thank you, Stacy, for asking that question. It is an important question because, what we're seeing right now with the trial, and again, that brings me back to our last conversation. That's not justice. Justice is making sure that we lose no more Black people due to police violence. But we're losing Black people right now due to police violence. We lost Black people right in the midst of that trial due to police violence. And that's only accountability. We need to normalize what accountability looks like. And we need to separate it from justice. Justice is not accountability, and accountability is not justice. Accountability is holding people accountable for their wrongdoing, and for making sure that they are suffering the consequences of not treating us with dignity and respect, and not treating us with love and with justice, right? But the fact that Ma'Khia Bryant, 16-year-old, was gunned down, she called the police in Columbus, Ohio the other day, and she only called the police because she was getting jumped by a group of girls, right? And the police came and shot and killed her. And like I said, Dominique Russian, the Black trans woman, was gunned down and was killed. So many people are being gunned down right now at this second. No justice is happening. Justice is not being served. In order for us to get justice, abolish qualified immunity, give reparations to Black people, pour funds into our communities, uplift people out of poverty, ensure that people have a right to live and can morally thrive. not just to merely thrive, not just to merely live, but to thrive abundantly. And we need that to happen. So stay in the streets, pressure our lawmakers, continue to be at their face, look them dead in the eye and say, I will not stop holding you accountable until you deliver for me and my people, until you know what it is like to live in my shoes and to understand our struggles. And for that very reason, we will not rest.
Tell me one thing that makes you hopeful that we can win this battle for equality in this country.
Is to be in the space of people who believe in freedom, who believe in liberation, who believe in love, who believe in peace, and to know that we are so powerful, we're so resilient. That is why they are fighting us so much. It's because they see the power within our skin, on the joy that it brings to one another. And they understand, and they know very clearly that we understand. That is why our real history is not being taught in schools. We're still being taught that Christopher Columbus had discovered America instead of Native Americans being discovered America. We are on stolen land. This is Lenape land, and we need to understand that, right? But what keeps me hopeful is to know that our ancestors, right, my ancestors have done so much to get us to where we are right now. And we know right now, time is not too different from where they were alive versus to what we're going through now. But to know that we have their blood, to know that we have their strength and their drive, to speak truth to power and their courage, right? To get to the next day, that will bring us joy. To finish their unfinished business, right? That is no greater feeling of knowing that they have our backs and knowing that we are on the good side, on the right side of history, and following those that came before us, that had gave of their lives, that bled, sweat, cried, just for us to be free, just for us to get here, just for me to tell the story of their dream. That is what gives me hope. And it only gets better than that.
Yeah. You are an inspiration. The way you talk about finishing the unfinished business that our ancestors began. I think that is such a powerful way to put it, because a struggle for justice, it just is a continuous struggle. So I appreciate the passion and the vision that you put to this work, challenging us to do better. How can people stay in touch with you and follow your work? And you are not just in New Jersey. I see you are nationally. You were in Ohio. You were working everywhere. So how can people follow your steps? And I want to say that I was so happy. I didn't know you have a relationship with Malcolm X, and so I can see a little bit of that in you already. So how can people follow you and learn?
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. First and foremost, Patricia, it's really been a great conversation, and I look forward to having more conversations. People can follow me on my social media platforms. On Instagram handle, it's Little4 Elizabeth. On Facebook, it is Kason Little, Kason Little. And you will see my pictures pop up. And I want to remind people to really stay in tune with the work that we're doing, because it's incumbent on all of us to speak up. It is incumbent on all of us to get into this necessary trouble, and good trouble, and to be fierce leaders, bold leaders of the change that is yet to happen, the change that we will make sure and to become a reality. So thank you for having me, and please follow me, and I will definitely, I'm always willing to connect with different people and to have these conversations, because it is important to have, and we need to really prepare each other for what is yet to come.
Thank you so much. And I want to just tell our listeners that you are a public speaker. I heard you speak and train young people. So if anybody's looking for a powerful, inspirational speaker to come and just help you have these conversations, Kason is an amazing leader that can help you train and have these discussions, because that's what it's all about. So thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. Take care, everybody.
Okay. And we'll see you on the streets.
Yes.
I hope that you enjoyed the conversation with Kason. His passion for doing this work at such a young age inspires many to demand more. The movement for Black Lives calls on all of us to engage in the hard work of checking our own bias or accepting some of the privileges that we have, and acknowledge that we have a responsibility not to do better moving forward. The weight of poverty in our cities creates very little opportunity for working people and young people. And at the core of how we're going to change opportunity for people of color is engaging in the hard work and understanding how years and years of systemic oppression has created a system in which police brutality exists. I come to this work from an understanding of the mutuality of concerns that we have as immigrant advocates, as social justice advocates, as labor leaders. The solution is not easy. The solution lies in true allyship. It lies in true, genuine work to check our own racist bias against our Black brothers and sisters, to understand our own history of colorism and colonialism and how has that hidden our own understanding of our oppression when we come to this country. We are here trying to make a better life for our kids. And as Americans, we must also continue to fight to make America what Langston Hughes once said he wanted to make America. The place that was never what it was meant for him, but the place that he wanted to make a reality. And he just basically said, oh yes, I say it plain, America was never America to me. And yet I swear it, America will be. In the words of Langston Hughes, let's commit to make America be a place where everybody can be. Thank you for joining me today. This is Activista Rise Up, and you can follow me on all my social media channels and on Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. Have a good afternoon.